This week, Apple announced when Aperture will officially no longer work on Mac products. Yes, it's been a sad week around here. But we will get into all the details and talk about why Apple did such a bad thing to such a good product. Hey everyone, this is Lucas Acosta with Fuji. Not only have we been in business for 10 years, but before Fuji, a couple of us were actually working at Apple, certified in Aperture, and teaching people how to use Aperture. So yes, we're all, feeling a little low this week. But as it stands, Apple stated on April 29th, 2019 that, quote, Aperture won't run in versions of the Mac operating system after macOS Mojave. The link in the description below will actually take you to the knowledge base article where Apple outlines all of the details and what are two main options you can do to continue using your photos if you choose to upgrade Mojave. Quick recap, yes, Aperture does still work today on Apple's latest operating system, Mojave. So if you haven't upgraded to Mojave, it is totally safe to do so. We actually have a few clients that are doing it. However, come, I'm assuming this fall when Apple comes out with a new operating system, here it is. It will not work, Aperture will not work on the new OS. So from there, this article documents two main directions you can go. One is convert your Aperture library into the much simpler Photos app, or two, convert it into Lightroom Classic, in which Lightroom actually has a tool to help you import that. Again, Apple's knowledge base article has all that information. Now, yes, there is a third option, and that is to not upgrade past Mojave. And sure, that's an option, but at that point, you're just getting to the highest part of the sinking ship. So you really need to make a migration plan for what you're going to do with these photos sooner than later. On that note, you can also sign up with a link below to get some notifications from Fuji on ways that we can help you make that migration. We're going to put in some resources online, and if you need a remote session, to go ahead and guide you through that process. I feel like many of you that Apple had a really good thing going with Aperture. Unfortunately, even though I was working with Apple at the time, I can see now that Apple was making those investments at the peak Mac business. Not that business is slower by any means, it's still even higher than it used to be, but at the time, the Mac business was the biggest area of revenue that Apple had. But unfortunately, around the time, a few years into Aperture, this cultural and computational phenomenon called the iPhone and mobile computing in general was about to really shake up the industry. And so Apple was left with a really tough decision. So why did Apple axe Aperture? It actually couldn't be more clear, in my opinion. There's three main reasons. The first reason is that the world was changing from a primarily local storage environment to a cloud storage environment. Now, I know primarily doesn't include you and me. We're the very small percentage of Apple's customers, which is one of the reasons why our opinion didn't really matter at the end of the day. Because Apple was building for 90% of consumers out there, and cloud storage was becoming really cheap. So that's reason number one. Now, reason number two is a little philosophical. Apple doesn't do big teams, okay? And Apple doesn't splinter off teams with side projects or legacy projects. Apple is a company of focus. And like I've said many times before, if you followed Apple long enough, there are a company of habits and patterns. You just have to look closely. And Apple is obsessed with focus. And that obsession with focus leads them to make decisions like having small teams, okay? Small teams are more productive. Small teams have less hierarchy, which means less bureaucracy and less politics. So Apple has always operated on very, very small teams, which is one of the reasons why we love Apple, right? The consistency between all of their products and the high quality of their products. However, this created a tough decision. So let's step back and combine these two. Apple works in very small, very focused teams, okay? And the world is moving to cloud storage. So Apple is sitting here saying, okay, we have a really amazing photography team and we cannot split the focus of this team or teams too many different ways. So we're gonna have to make a tough decision. Before I get into the result of that decision, there's actually one more, I guess, third reason, and that is that Lightroom existed at the time. They were rivals. And Apple has stated, again, time and time again, that Apple only makes products where they can make a significant contribution to the market. And if you looked over the aisle to Lightroom, it was actually a pretty compelling product. Now, I know it's not Aperture, but listen, they both kind of do the same thing. So they made this tough decision, and what did it really result in? It resulted in Apple tossing out Aperture, a product that we really loved, and instead having this watered down kind of, photo management tool for the masses. But listen, they weren't promising us Aperture. If they were, they would have kept Aperture. But if you look closely, you can see some of that similar DNA from Aperture showing through in the Photos app, because hey, it was the exact same Aperture engineers that built that Photos app. For example, the Photos app brought more editing capabilities like levels and also third-party integrations. But also the most important is probably the whole referenced images. You guys remember that from Aperture? Being able to disconnect from an external storage device from where all of your original images were and still see your entire library. That at the time was amazing. We thought it was magic. And look what Apple did with that technology is they put it into Photos with the iCloud photo library. So now you can have 100,000 photos in your pocket on your iPhone, and all of the originals are stored in the cloud. And with one tap, you can download that original and start editing it on the fly. Sure, the editing isn't the same, and it's not non-destructive in the same way that Aperture was, but the same premise is there. So you have to make the decision for yourself, which is more important. Okay, and at this point, you really do have those two options in our opinion. It's gonna be Lightroom if you wanna keep the flexibility of file management and external storage, and also tagging and kind of a keyboard shortcut rich application with a lot of editing tools. Or do you wanna take this as an opportunity to simplify your photo management and just let iCloud take care of all of it? Do I love that they got rid of Aperture? No. And frankly, it kind of sucks that they broke the user's trust a little bit by changing direction. But if I think about it, this is what I would rather Apple do. And this is why I continue to choose Apple, because I know that they are making the best decisions to keep the best quality products, which is something that not a lot of other companies do. A lot of other companies don't want to make those hard decisions, and so they keep several versions of tools alive, several different legacy options for customers that might still want that. And what that results is in bigger teams, more management, more bloated software, and more complicated software. It is a double-edged sword, but that's why I continue to choose Apple products. They make those tough decisions so that we don't have to. And we have a certain level of expectation out of the quality of their software and their products because of these decisions. I'd love to know what app you are currently using to manage your photos. And also, if you haven't switched yet, what are you planning on choosing? Be sure to sign up in the link below so we can send you some information on resources to help you convert from Aperture into Lightroom or Photos. If you like this, hit subscribe. We're coming out with these videos regularly as we are in the field in constant pursuit of the best tools and techniques that we can find, and we're sharing them with you. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.